In the heart of Boston, where tour guides point to monuments and commuters hurry past bronze-plated history, stands a building most people only speak of in lowered voices, the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. On tourist maps, a landmark. In conversations after dark, the city's most stubborn secret. Officially, it's a place for benevolent meetings and ceremonial dinners, clean explanations polished like the marble columns at the entrance. Yet a former employee who demanded anonymity and refused to meet indoors, hinted at rooms even lower rank members were forbidden to acknowledge. He remembered doors sealed longer than anyone in that lodge has been alive. That's when the loose ends begin to tangle. Public architectural plans from the city archives cut off abruptly. 5 years missing without a trace. Names of supposed architects shift from one brochure to another, like someone rewriting footprints on a muddy road. And buried in the Municipal Museum catalog, a complaint from 1921 describing unsettling sounds from the lodge at night. It vanished from records soon after, labeled an archival inconvenience. People who live nearby whisper about levels beneath the basement, unseen passages branching like ancient roots under Boston's old brick streets, a network left from smuggling tunnels, or something older, something never meant to be mapped. Skeptics laugh. But no one in city government bothers to deny those tunnels exist. They simply change the subject. And if it's all just superstition, a local ghost story for bored students. Why have all proposed renovations been quietly shut down, year after year? Something below that building resists the light. And the deeper you look, the more the city seems determined to make sure no one ever asks the wrong question. Next, the history they can't erase, no matter how many pages go missing. To understand what the Grand Lodge might conceal, you have to rewind nearly 3 centuries to a Boston that smelled of tar, seawater, and imported tea. The year is 1733. A small circle of men, merchants, printers, craftsmen, established the first Masonic lodge in the American colonies. Within a generation, their names appear in textbooks: Franklin, Revere, Hancock, patriots, founding fathers, and frequent guests of a fraternity that prized privacy above reputation. Their influence seeped into the city's bones. Certain squares follow geometric layouts that mirror the symbols etched on lodge rings. Facades carry carvings that, to most eyes, are decorative. To trained observers, they are coordinates in plain sight. When the Grand Lodge rose in 1899 on the remnants of an old warehouse, newspapers called it a monument to fellowship. The blueprints in public view show assembly halls, a library, document storage, respectable, almost dull. But the paper trail fractures. Cross-referencing municipal ledgers with its internal lodge financial reports reveals a 20% discrepancy in construction costs, money allocated to special works, yet no line item matches the term. On revised schematics, blank rectangles appear like erased thoughts, labeled technical void and left unaddressed. No annotations, no signatures, just silence. Historians, cornered by curiosity, attempt explanations. A logistical theory: subterranean cisterns to guard against harbor floods, functional, innocent. A rumor from North End residents. A vault for relics spirited out of Europe when monarchies toppled. Refuge for the objects, not the men. A scholarly hypothesis: chambers to shelter records from political purges. An insurance policy against ideological storms. Official statements dodged with careful politeness. All standard for a building of that era. Yet in 1967, when the city prepared a renovation proposal, every document about prior structural changes was classified until 75. No justification offered, not even a perfunctory one. It leaves a question hanging like dust in an abandoned stairwell. If those unused funds and blank blueprint sections meant nothing, why are they treated like state secrets? What exactly was constructed in the spaces no one will admit exist? And why does the timeline of Boston's own revolution overlap so neatly with the birth of a fraternity that documented everything, except what mattered most? It starts with details so small they should have been invisible. On the 3rd floor of the Grand Lodge, in a hallway the public never sees, the ceiling blooms into a mosaic sky. At first glance, just decoration. Glass stars set in dark enamel, glimmering like frost. But a retired astrophysicist from MIT, invited to a banquet decades ago, recognized the pattern immediately. It wasn't any modern star chart. It was the sky above Boston on December 16, 1773, the night of the Boston Tea Party. Historical pride, perhaps. Except one star is displaced, slightly off the ecliptic, creating a pattern that doesn't belong to astronomy. It resembles the kind of diagram used in surveying land. A pinpoint, a coordinate. Downstairs, the building changes tone. The basement air tastes metallic, as if the walls hold on to every breath. Past rows of old pipework and forgotten storage closets waits a door. Steel, with a bronze panel instead of a handle. The compass emblem on it looks ordinary until you see the hairline seams around the edges, like something meant to slide or pivot. In a margin note from a 1974 restoration report found at Tufts University, a contractor wrote, "Panel responds to contact with cold metal, not wood, not warm touch." He left the job within the month. His personnel file is missing its final page. In 1997, a small collective of local historians calling themselves Boston Undercurrents secured permission to film a documentary about lodge architecture. Their permit lasted 14 days. On day 6, filming stopped. Funding evaporated, sponsors withdrew, and the only public statement was a single line: "The material cannot be responsibly released." The rest of the crew scattered. One member, approached years later, responded through an attorney, refusing to confirm he'd ever held a camera in that basement. His only written comment: "Some places are built to keep their own secrets. Entering them is a kind of theft." But fragments of their work survived. Xeroxed pages smudged with soot. An audio transcript that ends mid-sentence. Notes read like a field report. Octagonal chamber, no furniture. Voice echoes wrong, returns before the sound. Floor flexes under weight, not hollow, reactive, like standing on the skin of a machine. An architect who reviewed the notes said the chamber resembled a counterweight room, something used to balance mass when another mechanism moved. When asked what kind of mechanism, he didn't answer. He just folded the papers, handed them back, and said, "This building isn't what it says it is." All of it could be misinterpretation, paranoia, coincidence. And yet, the lodge has upgraded security 6 times in 15 years, each system more elaborate than municipal courthouses or the state archives. Motion sensors built into 19th century foundations, pressure alarms under marble floors that predate modern engineering. They're guarding something, not treasures for display, not documents for scholars, something that reacts, something that waits. And the most unnerving part is this: if those rooms were never meant to open, why does the architecture behave like a mechanism designed to awaken when the wrong person steps inside? In 2013, the neighborhood had just settled after a summer storm when the lights blinked out. 1 second of darkness, then another. 7 minutes without electricity. Long enough for the Grand Lodge to exhale. Along Boylston Street, security cameras captured pavement shifting, not cracking, not warping, lifting as if the ground drew a breath. 5 paving stones rose in a perfect arc, held for a heartbeat, then eased back into place. City engineers blamed temperature fluctuations, a polite lie, thin as tissue. 2 independent analysts reviewed the footage and reached the same conclusion. The motion was synchronized, like a linked system responding to a signal, a mechanism underground. 5 years later, an envelope without a return address arrived at the office of a Boston Herald reporter. Inside, photocopies of internal correspondence between city officials and lodge representatives. A name appeared again and again: the Meridian Vault. Phrases circled in red pencil: protection of non-exhibitable heritage. Material predating constitutional authorship. One line, blurred along the crease, read, "Access contingent on continuity of national narrative." The letter was dismissed as a forgery, too convenient, too cinematic. Except analysis by an archivist from the Library of Congress revealed the ink formula, a blend used briefly in the 1970s, then discontinued. Not impossible to reproduce, but improbable for a hoax. Theories multiplied like cracks in winter asphalt. Retired federal agents, reluctantly off record, whispered about documents that could redraw the silhouette of the Founding Fathers, that hinted at agreements made in candlelit rooms before independence had a name. If the Meridian Vault holds such records, its purpose would be obvious. Not to reveal history, but to spare the nation from choking on it. And still, no confirmation, only watchful silence. Yet the Lodge's behavior speaks louder than denials. Closed-door meetings with state officials, contractors brought in at night, signing non-disclosure agreements before stepping over the threshold. An attempt to schedule seismic testing for nearby subway maintenance mysteriously postponed, indefinitely. The pattern forms a shape, like that misplaced star in the mosaic upstairs, a coordinate pointing downward. What lies beneath could be nothing more than misplaced patriot mythology, artifacts too fragile for display, minutes from forgotten meetings, maps of colonial tunnels never finished. But what if the Meridian Vault is more than storage? What if it's a counterweight, the balancing force for some unseen apparatus built into the foundations of the Republic? A safeguard, or a contingency. Imagine an archive designed not to preserve knowledge, but to contain it. Knowledge that, once unsealed, would drag entire chapters of American identity into the light. Truths too heavy for ceremony, too volatile for classrooms. The Grand Lodge might simply be a relic, a museum of ritual and fraternity. Or it might be a lock, waiting for the wrong key. In quiet moments, when the city hum fades and trolley brakes sigh outside, some swear they feel a tremor underfoot. Not geological, but deliberate, like something below is shifting its weight, testing the boundaries of its confinement. Maybe it's invention, maybe it's memory. But if the Meridian Vault exists, if the mechanisms beneath Boylston Street are real, then somewhere in Boston, a question waits like a loaded chamber. What bargain was struck to forge a nation? And what was buried to make the bargain hold? And perhaps the more unsettling question: if that vault opens, whether by accident, intention, or time, will history survive the truth it has hidden? Or will the truth demand a new history?